Now, I'm sure we're all going to be on our best behaviour today because we're being observed in the gallery by 5th and 6th class from Baileyborough in County Cavan. We have a business proposal to take first from the Government Chief Whip. Minister Naughton, please.
It's proposed that, notwithstanding anything in Standing Order 34A or in the ordinary routine of business as contained in Schedule 3 to Standing Orders, Leaders' Questions pursuant to Standing Order 36 shall be taken now, followed immediately by the Order of Business pursuant to Standing Order 35, following which the ordinary routine of business shall be taken, subject to the arrangements agreed on the Order of Business.
Mick Barry has a point to raise.
Ceann Comhairle, the reason the Chief Whip is asking the Dáil to approve a new start time is to enable the Taoiseach to both take leaders' questions and to catch a plane to the United States. The Taoiseach is flying over to meet President Biden, ostensibly to celebrate 100 years of diplomatic relations, but in reality to celebrate Joe Biden's presidency before he leaves office.
Statements. Deputy Barry, please.
I'll be brief, Ceann.
Thank you.
The Taoiseach should not be celebrating the presidency of a man who is arming and financing a genocide against the Palestinian people. There should be no farewell drinks for President Biden and no place at Shannon Airport for US planes bringing arms to Israel. There is a huge gap between the Taoiseach's words and the Taoiseach's actions on this issue. And I'll conclude, Ceann Comhairle, with this. If I cannot call a vote on the Taoiseach's visit, I will call a vote now on the Chief Whip's proposal, and I will also be urging people to join the protest at Shannon this Saturday at 1 o'clock.
Deputy Duncan-Smith, please, on behalf of the Labour Party.
Ceann Comhairle, given the revelations at the front page of the Sunday Times that there's a member of the Oireachtas that has been recruited by Russian intelligence, though it's been scoffed and laughed and dismissed by many since, but this is a matter of the utmost importance and seriousness, and I haven't seen anything either from internally from the Oireachtas or politically in terms of how we're going to actually counter and deal with this. So I'd like to hear something either from yourself, Ceann Comhairle, or from the Taoiseach as to how we're going to manage and deal with this in our own house. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Matthew McGrath.
Ceann Comhairle, look, I don't know what's going on with this Taoiseach, but he's the media-driven demented, he's the people-driven demented, he's us-driven demented. I think he's becoming demented himself, and I think it's time now to stop on all the tricks and snakes and ladders. I have a bit of cop on and respect for the people as well as this House. Call the election. Let the dog see the rabbit. Let us out there and rather than playing games up and down and back and forward, running over to Joe Biden and back. Is it afraid you won't be Taoiseach again, that you won't be over in March? So I think it's a bit of a charade, Taoiseach, and he's trying to drive the whole country to men, especially the electorate. But they can see what's going on.
Thank you very much.
And they'll catch you in good time.
We're just dealing with the proposal on the order of business now here, nothing else. Taoiseach, do you want to comment?
I'm concerned to hear Deputy Barry would like to have a vote on my movements and where I can and can't go. That certainly doesn't work, Deputy Barry. So that's the first thing. Second thing is I could have easily done what many Taoiseach do regularly when they're attending official business, is send someone in here to deputise on my behalf. What I did was ask the House for the agreement to come... Excuse me. Thanks. What I did here was ask the House to take leaders' questions early because I need to leave the House. If the House doesn't wish me to take leaders' questions, I can leave the House and someone will deputise on my behalf. But I take my duties in this House seriously, and therefore I asked the House to reconvene an hour earlier for leaders' questions, which I would now dearly love to take.
No, please, no. Are we in agreement with the proposal?
I represent the people of this country. A hell of a lot better than you do. A hell of a lot better than you do.
Answer my question.
Hell of a lot better.
Are we agreed with the proposal?
No, not agreed.
Agreed.
Not agreed.
Agreed.
Not agreed. Vote on.
On the point raised by Deputy Smith concerning the very serious revelation about the Oireachtas member who it appears is in the pay of Russia.
We can only have one contribution from each party. Now, na chattia tarhev na tarish gan abadishtá. In a gunna Neil, the stoilum quilling cash Richard, I believe the question is carried. Question carried. Vote on. Can we have tellers? Neil, 47. There were no abstentions. The question is carried and the business proposal is agreed. On leaders' questions, we welcome Deputy Mary Lou McDonald at the Taoiseach. Deputy McDonald, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Cian O'Callaghan. Is she all right? Yeah? Okay. Taoiseach, carers do extraordinary work all across Ireland. They show incredible dedication to vulnerable loved ones that they care for. Parents who care for children and young adults with complex needs, those who look after their elderly parents, and those who care for family members with disabilities. Caring is work done with love, but it is work. It's 24/7, every day, every night, non-stop. Carers don't get to clock out. They keep going. And the work they do saves the state billions. Yet there's very little recognition from the state, and for many there is no recognition at all. Taoiseach, it's wrong that carers' allowance is means tested. That means test must be abolished. In your budget last week you allocated just €11 million to relax the means test. As a first step towards scrapping the means test, we in Sinn Féin proposed an allocation of €100 million. That's 10 times higher than your government. Our proposal would have increased the income threshold to €730 or €1,460 for a couple. That compares to only €625 or €1,250 for a couple under the government's measure. So yours is a modest improvement, Taoiseach, but you're making carers wait until next July for this to kick in. Why is that? Why are you making carers wait? The very real pressure on carers was laid bare in RT's Liveline last week. One caller, Angela, told her story. She was getting half carers' allowance to care for her 24-year-old daughter, Shannon. Shannon has spastic cerebral palsy, chronic lung disease, scoliosis. She's blind and she's peg-fed. She's on multiple medications and she requires round-the-clock care. Angela was means tested in May. She was informed that her allowance would be cut by €40 a week because her husband earned above the threshold. Her husband, bear in mind, a man who comes home from work and begins his second job of caring for his beloved daughter. Now, Angela expects that her half carers will be restored following the budget, but she's got to wait until July for this. Taoiseach, somebody in Angela's situation shouldn't be means tested at all. Lisa also rang in. She cares for 2 adult children with autism. She says she'll care for them for the rest of her life. In February, Lisa and her husband were means tested and her carer's allowance was slashed by 1/3 because her husband was earning slightly over the limit. Lisa's workload didn't change, her bills didn't go down, but Lisa's support was cut. When the threshold was increased last summer, the payment was restored, but that whole experience has robbed her of certainty. She said that the means test process was incredibly disrespectful. She was asked to submit bank statements even for the card her daughter uses to buy chocolate when she's out for a walk. She said the process made her feel like a cheat, and she was queried as though she were money laundering. Those were her words. So níosa ceart go bhfuil darmad déanta ar cuairmóirí a ríis is a ríis eile, agus curtha ar cúil na scuaine. Níl sé ceart go bhfuil orthu fannacht 6 mhí le haghaidh feabhsathe beaga. Taoiseach, Angela and Lisa, as you well know, are not alone in how they're treated, and it shouldn't be this way. Carers must have respect, fairness and certainty. So my question is this. Instead of making carers wait until July, Taoiseach, will you ensure that the social welfare bill delivers the threshold increases for carers' allowance from January?
Taoiseach.
I want to thank the Deputy for raising this important matter. I want to begin by recognising, as she did, the very important role that carers play in Irish society. We all know it in our own families, in our own communities, and I know there's widespread views right across this House and Irish society in terms of the need to continue to do all that we can to support our carers. I do note that the likes of Family Carers Ireland, a representative group for family carers, spoke in acknowledging a number of the positive steps in this budget for carers. And I accept there's always more to do, but I do take seriously their positive comments towards Budget 2025, which we of course just delivered last week, and also towards the cost of living measures in that budget, many of which will have a real and meaningful impact for carers much more quickly than of course next year. At the end of August there were 97,407 people in Ireland in receipt of carers allowance. The estimated cost of this scheme this year is expected to be over €1.1 billion, but of course you're right, it shouldn't be seen as a cost because indeed it's saving the state such a significant sum of money. We have seen very significant steps by Minister Humphreys in terms of increasing the income disregard for carers allowance, and I know you'd acknowledge that, and certainly representative groups that I've met with the Minister have acknowledged that in my presence. It was €332.50 to €625 for a single carer, and it's gone from €665 to €1,250 for a carer who is part of a couple. It's also worth noting that in the budget we took a number of other steps at the request of carers and their representative organisations, including increasing the capital disregard. We increased this as part of the budget, and a carer with a spouse or a partner can now have capital of up to €100,000. And again, this was something that we directly heard from carers in our pre-budget meetings and engagements, some of which I also attended. Notwithstanding those improvements, let me agree with you on this point. There is more work to do in relation to this. And in relation to eligibility for carers allowance and for carer supports more broadly. And that's why my colleague, the Minister for Social Protection, did establish a working group to look exactly at the whole area of means-tested payments to family carers. And that group will report by the end of the year. And I know that is an important moment and something, again, that carers representative organisations have looked for as well. There's a variety of costs around what it would cost to abolish the means test. I acknowledge you have your work done, we have some work done, and we're awaiting the working group. But a conservative estimate is an additional cost of around €600 million per annum based on current claim numbers. However, actually looking at Census 2022, the number of carers, potential inflow into the system, it could be €2 billion per year. We're aware of that, but I just want to put that out there for the record. We have taken, though, a number of measures in the here and now while we're waiting for that working group to conclude this year, including increasing the annual carer support grant by €150 to €2,000. The rate of this grant has increased by €300 since 2021. The social insurance-based carers benefit has been extended to the self-employed for the first time. We had a bizarre situation where the self-employed couldn't qualify for that. We've rectified that. And there's a number of practical measures to help carers with the cost of living, including a €400 cost of living lump sum payment for carers eligible for the carer support grant in November. In October, we'll see the cost of living bonus being paid to all people who receive weekly long-term social welfare payments, including carers. The Christmas bonus will be paid to over 1.3 million long-term recipients, including carers. We've increased the weekly rate of carers allowance and carers benefit by €12 a week, the fourth successive rise in weekly rates under this government, and rates have increased by €41 per week in the lifetime of this government as well, and a range of other measures. You asked specifically the question in relation to July, and the answer I've been given, which is that we've increased that in July last year. So we're increasing it each 12 months. We last increased it last July. The next level of increase will kick in next July. But to carers, we're very clear on this. We've taken a number of measures to help in the here and now. We have received positive feedback from their representative organisations in relation to that. There is a recognition of an important piece of work that's underway in relation to that working group looking at the whole issue of the means testing for family carers, and we look forward to acting upon its recommendations later this year.
McDonald.
Well, I was in Crumlin yesterday, as it happens, and I was speaking to a number of families who have children and young people with autism. So we're talking about lots of things, school places and so on, but the one issue that came up with them that I am hearing again and again, and it's not recent, this is a long-standing issue, is the issue around the means test for the carers allowance. I spoke to one woman yesterday and she recounted how her husband now has foregone 3 different pay increases because it would tip them over the edge in terms of the carers allowance. They're not a well-off family, Cian O'Callaghan. They're struggling to make ends meet. So I put it to you again, and notwithstanding the work of the group that you've set up to investigate the matter, I think we need to accept as a matter of fact and principle that the means test has to be abolished. It's the smartest investment that we will make as a state in our carers and in home caring. But I want to come back to the issue of July versus January. We will move amendments in the social welfare bill to move this back to January. I don't think it's a fair or reasonable explanation, Taoiseach, to people who are struggling as it is to say to them that they have to wait an additional 6 months because of some government timetabling issue. So I'd appeal to you when we move those amendments that the government would accept them.
Taoiseach, please.
Well, look, let's. We often have an argy-bargy in this place, but on this issue, I think there is a broad consensus that we need to do more to support our carers. I acknowledge that, and that's why I've outlined a number of steps that Minister Humphreys has taken that I'm proud of, because I know they've made a real difference, because I've met the people who have benefited from them. There is a recognition that there needs to be changes in relation to the means test. That's why, under Heather Humphreys as Minister, we have seen the amount that somebody can earn going from €332.50 for when they're a single person up to €625, and it was €665 for a family, going up to €1,250. And as you rightly say, we've made measures in the budget only announced last week to move that again. We've also heard from carers saying, hang on, we're not just getting caught on the means test in terms of our weekly income. We're getting caught because we're self-employed. Can you do something on that? We have acted on that. We've also heard from them saying we're not just getting caught on those issues. We can sometimes be caught if we happen to have a bit of capital. If we set aside money for our children or their college or whatever, their future, as families can do. And we've acted on that as well. And we will act on the findings of the working group. And we will engage in good faith on these issues during the social welfare bill.
Thank you very much. Taoiseach, we go now to Deputy Cian O'Callaghan, please.
Taoiseach, instead of investing in long-term sustainable supports in the budget, you splashed cash on temporary measures. Today we learned the dates that those 10 payments will be made, most before November 22nd and the remainder by early December. The government parties are cock-a-hoop with this schedule because it's right around when most of us expect to be going to the polls. I think their glee will be short-lived because bribery is a bad look. And has there ever been a more blatant attempt to buy an election? While these payments will certainly be welcome, they won't last very long. By the new year, they will be long gone. And what supports will be available to people as prices continue to rise? Very few. That's why the ESRI's analysis of your budget is so scathing. They say your budget will push older people and disabled people into poverty. I doubt we will see that damning verdict on any Fine Gael election posters, but it's the reality. The ESRI has also said that your budget will not reduce the child poverty rate, despite both you and your predecessor stating that this was a priority. We all know for this government talk is cheap. The truth is other priorities took precedence, namely spraying money around indiscriminately in the hope of buying an election. Taoiseach, where was the vision in this budget? Where was the ambition to fix the really big problems that we are facing as a country? You had a record surplus at your disposal, and all you managed to do was to tinker around the edges. Where was the plan to deliver thousands of affordable homes, or a public model of childcare that is accessible and affordable for parents, or quality disability services that children can actually access when they need them, or tackle the huge waiting lists in our health service? All of this was absent. The failure to target resources and spend money wisely is why people are so outraged by the 9 million for phone pouches. It's become a lightning rod for public anger because it's emblematic of this government's default approach of spin over substance. Taoiseach, you say that you care about youth mental health, and yet you've provided almost 4 times as much money for phone pouches than for additional staffing for child and adolescent mental health teams. Taoiseach, do you agree with the SRI that vulnerable people will be worse off because of your budget? And how can you defend a budget that lacked any real ambition to make lasting improvements to the country?
Thank you, Deputy Taoiseach, please.
So, Cian, I'd love to know which of the cost of living payments that will be paid out to people in all of our constituencies between now and Christmas you'd like us to cancel. Because if you want to let me know, I'd like to hear those proposals. Do you want me to stop the double child benefit payment on the first week of November? Do you want me to stop the double child benefit payment on the first week of December? Do you want me to stop the €300 fuel allowance payment? you want me to stop the double payment to the carers that we're going to do in October that we've just discussed, and the double payment again at Christmas? Do you want me to stop the payment in terms of the living alone allowance? Do you want me to cancel the energy credits? Because it's very easy to come in here in a large way and make these kind of statements. But if you could just tell me specifically, when you stand to your feet, which of the cost of living payments that I'm providing with this government, with taxpayers' money to your constituents, that your constituents don't want. And we'll be very happy to reflect on that. But my experience from travelling around this country is this. Yes, inflation is falling. Yes, the economy is going well. But right around the dinner table tonight, there's people in the here and now saying, I'm sick and tired of people on the radio telling me the economy is going well. I'm still struggling to pay my bills. The cost of when I'm taking the trolley around the supermarket, the cost is still large. And actually, I make no apology for giving people a little bit of their own money back in the here and now. And if people don't like that, now you can scoff if you want, Deputy Shortall. You can tell me which ones you're against too. Because I'm fed up with this. I'm fed up with this sneering and scoffing. Tell me which of the payments you don't want, please. And let me know. And if any other opposition parties email me, simon.harris@oireachtas.ie, let me know what payments you don't want. Because I'd really like to hear from you in relation to that. Because I stand by every single decision we made in the budget last week. This was a budget that did a number of things. It provided a cost of living package in the here and now, over €2 billion of people's own money, quite right. It's not bribery. It's called listening to people and delivering. It's called acting on what they said. Give us a little bit of help, Simon. Help us now. That's what we did. It also, though, sets aside money for infrastructure. You know, €1.2 billion more for the Land Development Agency. Some of you want to abolish that. We're putting more money into building houses. €1 billion more for water. That will help water schemes. In my constituency, and I'm sure many of your constituencies right across the country, 750 million more for the grid, a number of initiatives in 2025, including extra funding for disability, including extra funding for mental health, including a record justice budget, health budget, education budget, including things like holiday hunger. So the kids who are getting the school meals during the summer, there's a recognition from government that they might also be hungry when the school is closed. Extending the free school books, so never again does any of your constituents have to pay for a school book for when their child starts infants, until they finish the Leaving Cert. So yes, there's clearly a real policy difference from us in relation to this. And I don't believe at all, despite the manufactured efforts at faux outrage, that the people of Ireland have bought into this thing about the pouches at all in terms of how you're putting it out. We delivered a budget of over €105 billion. As part of that, we're giving every kid 20 quid for a phone pouch if they want it. And if they don't want it, they don't have to have it.
Deputy O'Callaghan.
I want you to put in place long-term supports and changes, not temporary measures. Let's be very clear about that. Taoiseach, your failure to invest where it is needed most has real consequences for people. And I'll just give you one example, Taoiseach. Gael Coláiste Rockran is in my constituency in the north side of Dublin. It's a great school with very dedicated staff. However, while the new school buildings have been promised for more than 20 years, the pupils are still being taught in prefabs. Some of the prefabs don't even have heating, so on cold winter days, the staff and the students have to wear their jackets and coats. 20 years waiting and still no sign of the buildings and facilities that they urgently need. And at the same time, this government throws money away on bike shelters, security huts and phone pouches. Taoiseach, what do you say to the pupils being taught in prefabs without heating when there's no shortage of money being splashed around by your government?
Taoiseach.
What I say to them is this government is delivering a record number of new school extensions. The Department of Education has a record budget for capital, and right across the country people can see new schools being built. And I'll certainly ask the Minister for Education to engage directly with you in relation to the specific Gael Coláiste that you've referenced in your own constituency as well. But it is overly simplistic. In fact, it is misleading to suggest that by providing some money in the here and now, you're stopping actually an ability to do some of those projects. As you well know, the cost of living measures are all funded from part of the surplus in 2024. The projects that you talk about in terms of long-term investment are funded from 2025. This country has an ability to do more than one thing at the same time, and actually providing people with a little bit of help to assist themselves and their family through the winter period is a good thing. In relation to the phone pouches, I think some of the faux outrage in this House has been utterly disingenuous. I don't know if any of you heard some of the school children So I listen to them. Listen to them, excuse me, he doesn't need any help. I listen to them on the radio talking about the benefits of the pouches. The school principals who saw have been transformational, or maybe the schools in Northern Ireland that have benefited as well.
Now, Deputy Thomas Pringle, please.
Taoiseach, in the last 2 hours, the online news publication, The Ditch, have revealed further controversy surrounding your failing defective block scheme. It has emerged that in more than 20 cases, Donegal County Council operated a portal had altered the recommendations of the homeowners' engineers. What I find interesting, or perhaps more appropriately described as disturbing, is that in each case, the alteration which Donegal County Council claim as a minor technical glitch resulted in the original engineering recommendation aligning with a downgraded option recommended by the housing agency appointed engineers' desktop appraisals. It would be naive in my mind to attribute this to a mere coincidence. When you add this to the statements from Engineers Ireland at the Oireachtas Committee on Finance, Public Expenditure and Reform and Taoiseach on the issue of IS 465 earlier this year, where they stated that it is the view of many engineers that the existing standard is no longer fit for purpose, where the mechanism of deterioration remains uncertain and developments in the scientific understanding of this issue must be appropriately considered. Further, they said, a survey conducted in March 2024 of members of Engineers Ireland's IS 465 register has shown that 75% of engineers employed by homeowners have experienced having a recommendation for option 1 revised to another option by a framework engineer employed by the housing agency with respect to the same property. You can see why this is leading to frustration among residents in County Donegal, who have had to engage with the scheme despite its many other flaws. I won't list them here again in the record, Taoiseach, if you promise to reciprocate as well. And not to recite again the standard reply so often delivered unthinkingly without reference to the particular question by your predecessors in that seat and by the Minister since the announcement of the so-called enhanced scheme. We know that the science now confirms the primary problem is internal sulphate attack. Yet 3 years on from the trumpeted scheme announcement, we don't have a date for the review of IS 465. These instances, together with a litany of others, such as a lack of proper engagement with homeowners' representatives on the unresolved issue of mortgageability, have contributed to confidence being undermined in the whole scheme in the eyes of those affected homeowners. Taoiseach, can you acknowledge that you are hearing the frustrations of my constituents in Donegal and accept that confidence has been eroded to a significant extent? And from that, will you commit to giving a definitive date when a revised or replaced IS 465 will be published so that it can have some clarity in the future?
Deputy Pringle, Taoiseach.
Thanks, Cian O'Callaghan. Thanks to Deputy Pringle for raising this matter. Yes, I do acknowledge that I hear the frustration of your constituents as articulated by you, and you've made specific reference to claims or information in relation to Donegal County Council, which I've yet to see, but which I certainly will ask the Minister for Housing to pursue with the local authority and to revert to you directly on, because I would like clarity in relation to that matter that you've just raised myself. You've specifically raised the issue of IS 465. As you know, the NSAI is Ireland's official standards body. It is, of course, an autonomous body under the responsibility of the Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Employment. My understanding is the NSAI have recently, I think on the 13th of September, provided an update on the status of the review of IS 465. The review will initially take the form of an extensive amendment to the testing protocol. I'm informed that the drafting of this amendment is nearing conclusion. The NSAI TC 63 have considered the interim output from the Geological Survey of Ireland managed research regarding internal sulphate attack and testing to identify that as well, and other highly reactive forms of iron sulphide. These will be included in the amended IS 465. Changes will also include updates to the building condition assessment and sampling protocols, taking account of the information currently available, including the learnings from the application of the current standard. The amendment will then be published by the NSAI for a period of public engagement, and stakeholders will be able to engage with this process using the Your Standards, Your Say platform, which can be assessed via the NSAI website. All comments in relation to these protocols received during the consultation will then be fed in by the technical committee as part of its final recommendation. I'll specifically see if I can find a more precise timeline for you, but that's the update that I have today. I'll also put it in writing to you because I'm conscious there's quite a lot of technical information. What they're telling me here is that the current drafting process for the amendment has been progressing well, with substantial commitment and input from the voluntary members. I thank them for that. Every effort has been made to complete committee deliberations and produce a public consultation draft amendment for Q3 of this year. However, it's now expected that the draft amendment will be published by the NSAI in Q4 for public consultation. Following the publication of any revised standards, the DCB grant scheme will be reviewed at that point in the event of such amendments being required. The Government also made a number of other amendments today which you may be aware of, and I'm happy to come back to in my further reply.
You outlined the process where the IS 465 is going to be amended, and it's no doubt it's going to be extremely slow. And already, even in your response there, you outlined that they advised that it would be published in Q3, but now it's Q4. So who's to say it's going to be Q1 or Q2 of next year as well? So that means that homeowners are going to be suffering under this existing scheme for a long time in the foreseeable future. So we've no clarity on actually when this is actually going to happen. And then, in the meantime, then we have Donegal County Council have altered the results that have come through from the housing agency on the website as well, which isn't on, and that shouldn't be happening. And this is further undermining people's confidence in this whole scheme that you've put in. And we've also seen over the last couple of months as well where the Attorney General has written to the Minister for Housing and advising him that the purpose of the scheme is to save the state money rather than deal with the defective blocks and the defective households. And that seems to be the purpose of this whole thing, is to save the state money, where it is the state that has caused this problem in the first place. The state, by its lax oversight of the building and construction industry, actually caused this problem by allowing defective blocks to go into the process. So the state needs to step up, and it needs to step up quickly. And Taoiseach, I would urge you to ensure that the amendments will be put through quickly and straight away, rather than waiting for months and months and months again.
Thank you.
Well, look, in relation to Donegal County Council and the issue specifically raised that has just, I think, come into the public domain, I will ask the Minister to revert to you and to engage with the local authority. I take the point about not wishing to see any further slippage and the importance of adhering to timelines, and I'll certainly keep a very close eye on that. Look, I do think we have to have a bit of balance in relation to this. I can only imagine the frustration, the stress, the sheer trauma that people must be living with if their own home is crumbling in front of their eyes, the concerns you'd have for your children, your parents, the well-being of your family. I get that. But I do think it's important to acknowledge that the state has put in place a massive level of financial resource to try and respond to this. And we are in real time continuing to engage and make improvements where we can. So, for example, you raised the issue of childcare previously. I gave you the position of the government in relation to line departments trying to respond to that. And even today, for example, Minister O'Brien brought a memo to Government to increase the current scheme cap for remediation options and for ancillary grants by the maximum allowed. And the memo also requested an increase in the grant rates under the scheme. Extending these increases to wider groups of relevant owners does require amending the 2022 Act, and the Minister will bring a separate proposal to Government to give effect to this policy intention so that the increases can apply retrospectively. So even today, we're seeing more proposals at Government to try and make further improvements to respond to the issues we're hearing from people in your own constituency.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Now we go to Deputy Danny Healy-Rae on behalf of the Rural Independent Group.
And people in Killarney and Kerry are very disappointed that the VAT wasn't reduced in the budget. And the failure to do this has traumatised a lot of people. Indeed, one man came out in College Street in Killarney to me last Saturday morning in the pouring rain. He came over to the door of the car to highlight his disappointment. Look, many businesses were clinging on and hoping that they would get this boost in the budget, but they didn't. Look, restaurants, bars, sweet shops, souvenir shops, hairdressers, many of these are under pressure, combined with the recent rules and regulations and the reduction of footfall caused by an influx of thousands of Ukrainians and immigrants into our hotels and guest houses and other places. You can't have it both ways, Taoiseach. You either support our tourism product or fill the hotels with immigrants. It's one or the other. Many businesses are struggling to pay the rates and also trying to cope with increased wage costs, electricity costs, many other rules and regulations. Clearly, it's very clear that, and many doors will close, and everyone that does will have a knock-on effect. Unemployment benefit, redundancies, payments, and you'll see in 2 or 3 years whatever government will be here inside, they'll be trying to spend a lot of money to entice people to open their doors again. carers, the means test. It is very, very unfair. And we had a motion here a few weeks ago, and he didn't oppose it. And the assumption was that he would lift the means test. GPs, we have a lack of GPs, and you see, you know what's caused it. There's thousands of immigrants came into our county, and
Deputy, please. Deputy, will you please let the speaker?
roads, Taoiseach. We're on the back foot all the time to get funding for roads. The Killarney bypass. It's going on for over 24 years now, and I'm asking to put money into this next year because people are parking their cars going in all the roads into Killarney. The Blackwater Bridge Road from Blackwater Bridge to Sneem, that was built for horses and cars 200 years ago. And what did he do? He built a cycleway for 1 kilometre inside in the middle of the Ring of Kerry Road, coming from nowhere. There's no cycle path coming to it or going out of it. That's where the money is being squandered. The squandering of billions on migrants, bicycle sheds, huts, phone pouches, millions to RTE, and no funding at all for independent radio.
Deputy, please. Wait.
Look,
Leaders' questions is to focus on one issue, not a range of issues, please.
Look, Minister,
please.
Many working people have been...
Time is up, Deputy. Time is up.
Or should I? No, when they won't let me talk, Councillor. I don't interrupt them people to talk, but to know something, I will from now on. And I'll have something to say to Deputy Batchik as well. She was the minister, the person, the TD here inside that said that she'd build 1 million homes. Now she's proposing to build another bicycle shed. Since when did you become McAlpine?
Resume your seat. Deputy, please.
She wants a bicycle. She wants a bicycle shed outside the door, and people in Kerry are suffering trying to keep going.
Lord, please. Please.
Outrageous. Ridiculous nonsense.
It's the truth.
Ridiculous nonsense.
Bravo.
I'll suspend the House. I will suspend the House if people don't have a bit of manners. Please. Taoiseach.
Thanks very much, Cian O'Callaghan. I think we're up to 7 or 8 issues, so in the limited time available to me, allow me to do my best to help the Deputy. Firstly, the challenges that you've outlined there have nothing whatsoever to do with immigration. The shortage of GPs and the likes, that doesn't stand up to scrutiny. The issues in the hospitality sector and the likes as well. In fact, there's many parts of the hospitality sector that significantly benefit from people coming to our country and working in those facilities as well. So I think we just have to have I think it's important we're factual in our comments here. Look, a couple of issues. We very much value small businesses. We very much value the hospitality sector. And indeed, I know, the way this works is you ask 7 questions in one and then I try to answer them. And in the budget, we did our best to try and respond and support those businesses. And I know how important tourism and hospitality is to Killarney and is to County Kerry. We have, even as recently as today, at Cabinet considered the detail of a €170 million scheme that we call the Power Up scheme. And under this scheme, all retail and hospitality businesses that had received a cost of business grant previously will receive a flat energy grant payment of €4,000 this year. Now, I've no doubt you'll be actively helping people in County Kerry apply for that. You'll be going into the shops and you'll be going into the cafes and the hotels and telling them how to apply for it. It's going to be very easy. They're going to get an email sent to them if they already got what we call the ICOP grant with a link. They can click on it. They can declare that they're still in business, that they're still operating, that they're paying the rates, and they get the £4,000 before Christmas. I know that will make a big difference. In addition to that grant, it is important to say, Deputy, that over the last 6 months, the increased cost of doing business, the ICOP scheme, has paid out over €242 million to almost 75,000 small and medium businesses, including a double payment to 39,000 businesses that are either in hospitality or in retail. By any objective fair measure, this is an unprecedented level of intervention in these sectors, and it's the right thing to do because they are the backbone of our economy, but it is an unprecedented level of intervention. I do fully accept, though, that there are real issues in relation to the cost base for hospitality businesses, for small businesses in Ireland. And I know Minister Burke is considering how best we can review the impact in terms of the range of costs that have come at small businesses, admittedly at a very fast pace. On top of that, we've very recently also in the budget under Minister O'Donovan announced a plan for what we call the National Training Fund that will see up to €20 million available for businesses to upskill their staff, with particularly €8 million targeted at small and medium businesses. Now I know there are small businesses in Kerry that will benefit directly from that in terms of not having to pay the training costs for their staff and us being able to do that to assist them. Look, in relation to the issue of carers, I've already, I suppose, outlined a number of the measures that we have taken. We do intend to take more, but the record of this government is one of year on year increasing the financial supports available to carers and the number of carers who can access those supports. And I accept there's more to do. That's the work of the working group that will conclude this year. And on roads, our work continues. And indeed, I was with you only very recently at the opening of the Listowel bypass.
Deputy Healy-Rae.
Many businesses have already closed, and what many more others were waiting and hoping that he'd reduce the VAT to 9%. He didn't do that. You're talking about the 4,000. What about the people that their rates went up from 20,000 to 80,000, from 5,000 to 20,000? Where is the 4,000 going to? How is the 4,000 going to help him? You see, you're trying to fool the people, but like the man that came out in the pouring rain to me last Saturday, they're waiting for it on the doorstep. They're waiting for it. Talking about the carers, he's been desperately unfair to these people, the great work that they do and that the home helps do. If that sided, and then the beds that are closed in the Kerry hospitals. What did he do to help him in this budget?
You have to focus on one issue, Deputy, not two or three.
What?
You have to focus on one issue. Not
I never was taught that. I'm talking about the budget.
Well,
how many issues is that? There's a lot of problems for the people that I'm representing. But if I can only, he must write out the rules. I thought I was talking about the budget. But no, what else am I talking about? It's all connected to the budget. And if there's people interrupting me over here and over there, and they can't go and stuck with me now, what hope have I? And what hope have the people of Kerry if we can't highlight their issues? He did leave them down. He had the opportunity. He had more money spent under your noses here with huts and bicycle sheds and under your eyes. And he ordained them and he paid for them. And at the same time, the OPW, there's so many more rivers. And it happened in Banan this week. They couldn't go up the road because he wouldn't let anyone clear out the river.
Well, the budget about that now. So can we please, can we leave it at that?
There's nothing for it in the budget.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Point is made. Taoiseach, please.
I kind of don't know where to start there, let alone end Concord, other than to hear Deputy Healy-Rae's passion for the people of Kerry, one that we share here. There's a number of things that we've taken in the budget that I know will make a real and meaningful difference to people in County Kerry. I can list a number of projects that we've worked at, many of which you've been at the opening of, in terms of whether it's the delivery of a university for Tralee. Now Kerry is now a university county, Tralee is a university town. Whether it's the road infrastructure, the likes of the Listowel bypass, which, by the way, came in on budget and on time. No, don't be shouting at me. You got to go run. I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. And on top of that,
you're nothing to do with that any of it anyway. That one bit in the world 15 years ago. There was no account to me.
All right, thank you very much. That concludes the colourful leaders' questions for today. We move now to the order of business. I call on the Government Chief Whip to move the proposal for this week's business in accordance with Standing Order 35. Minister Hildegard Naughton, please.
Cian O'Callaghan, considering the issue of child abuse committed by a member of Sinn Féin and the furnishing of character references for that person by Sinn Féin staff and the Sinn Féin leadership team, their continued involvement with this person, I think it would be only right that we would convene a meeting of the Business Committee with immediate effect to organise statements in the Dáil here.
Right. But what are you proposing at this point?
I would propose that the Business Committee would meet to discuss the timings around statements on this very important issue.
Yes, but are you proposing? I presume we'll do that in the course of the day. You're not
I can come back to do that. If the Business Committee want to meet and agree a time, I can come back in and propose a motion.
Well, what about
and proceed with the rest.
Please.
And proceed with the rest of the order as scheduled.
Let me just clarify. Please let me clarify with the government chief. Are you proposing that we suspend pending?
I am agreeing with. I want to move the schedule as agreed at the Business Committee,
Okay.
but I think it would be important that the Business Committee would meet to discuss
Okay.
this important issue around
no, wait
statements.
now, don't all start at the one time. So, to be clear, the Chief Whip is proposing the order of business as originally put to us, but she wants the Business Committee to meet to amend it.
Yes.
Okay, that's perfectly reasonable. Now, we'll take to Sinn Féin, please. I'll take everybody in order. Yeah.
Am I speaking to the order of business?
The order of
Sorry.
business, yes.
Thank you. So, first of all, if you'll indulge me, Cian Corla, let me just say, if the government want to schedule statements on the important issues of child protection and safeguarding, that's in their gift. I want to be clear that for our part, these unauthorised references that you have referred to were unacceptable, they were reprehensible. Action has been taken. The two individuals concerned have lost their jobs. They are now no longer members of Sinn Féin, and that's as it should be. We take these matters very, very seriously indeed, and I have taken swift action by way of response. Let me make this point, Cian Corla. In the course of our statements, the Taoiseach, the Tanaiste, the parties of government will have to also make clear what sanctions they have adopted in cases where very senior members of your parties have written character references for convicted rapists and child abusers. I will be interested to hear what action you took, and I'm sure that you will avail of that opportunity.
Please.
More broadly, and in response to the order of business, we'll wait and see what the government will do on that, because transparency goes both ways, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
I wanted to raise the issue, however, on the order of business, Cian Corla, if I might, on the issue of the ongoing genocide in Gaza and events as they have unfolded in Lebanon. We're now a year into this absolute catastrophe. Hell still rains down on innocent civilian and refugee populations. And we are now in a situation where our own peacekeepers are really in the way of danger. The Taoiseach has left the chamber. He will meet with President Biden in Washington. I can only hope that he will say to him very directly that the United States stop arming and funding Israel's war machine
we're out of time.
as we witness an ongoing genocide. He's not here to answer that, but can I put to the whip and to the government that we need time now to discuss what's happening in the Middle East, and not least the situation of our own
Deputy
peacekeepers.
please.
Cian Corla, and I want to perhaps cut across the to and fro on this, remembering that there are child victims here when we discuss child protection issues and serious matters that have arisen in respect of Sinn Féin's handling of child abuse by an employee, offences of child sex abuse by an employee. And I want to, Cian Corla, propose to the House that we make time available this week for statements on child protection issues, that we simply vote or agree, indeed by consensus, to make that time available this week, to hear statements on child protection and the procedures within political parties for managing child protection issues. Last week, I put to the Taoiseach a bill that we in Labour had drafted to make unincorporated associations accountable for paying redress where abuse had been committed by members or by those under the